Welcome to Energy Talks podcast. This will be the space for exploring energies, for exploring a joyful life, and for exploring those parts of life that maybe not always be brought into light, but is full of gold, of diamonds, of wisdom, and so much that are not always seen as a gift or as a possibility, but when you're just looking at it from a little different perspective, you will see that there's something there that will change everything. I am Anna Johansson, and I will be with you on this journey of possibilities, more awareness, joy, and fun. So let's get ready for an exploration of new possibilities. Today I have Kiera Doyle with me. Kiera is a human design reader, and I had a session with her a couple of months ago that was just so dynamically amazing for me. It shifted a lot of things about how I look on myself and how I function in the world, and just gave me so much more ease. So I got more curious to also have a deeper chat with her, also about her own personal story, which I always find so interesting. Everyone is living their lives and have their own unique wisdom to share. And so we get to hear today Kiera talk a bit about her upbringing, her way of moving forward in the world, where she is today, and how she's working with human design, as well as almost as a little lecture about human design and some of the main different types. So it's really interesting. It's really in depth, although like this system is so deep and rich, so it's really just scraping the surface with this. But if you don't know what human design is, it's a method where you can just find out more about yourself and like your blueprint that you arrived with to this earth. Kiera explains this very great in detail in the episode, so let's have a listen. Okay, so hi Kiera.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. I had a session with you some months ago now. You are the human design reader and so good at what you're doing. I felt so seen in the session that I had with you, which made so many things change in my life. That I was like, okay, now I also have a podcast, and it would be fun to get more people to know like what this was, and also who you are, and to lift that forth. So I'm very happy to have you here today.
Oh, me too. Me too. And sorry, did I just say your names? Did I just so Americanize your name? Did I just say Anna? I did, didn't I? I've been like, I'm too close to New York City. I'm like, we walk, we talk. Let me try that again. You say Anna, right?
Yes, I do.
Anna, I'm sorry. It's such a hard habit to break. But I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be your fourth guest.
Yeah, it's amazing to have you here. I'm so happy for this. And yes, maybe like we can just start. So like where in the world are you right now?
So I'm in Connecticut. I know I just mentioned New York City. I lived in New York for 11 years, and my husband and I moved to about 90 minutes outside of the city to this little beach town called Milford, Connecticut. We're like 5-minute walk to the beach. We have like a very small downtown, but it's kind of like this quaint, cute, little friendly neighborhood I always dreamed of living in when I was growing up, like deep in the
Aw.
country of Rhode Island, like the woods, like just deep in the woods where all my neighbors had farms and nothing was close by. You couldn't walk to anything. So this is like another childhood dream being realized, just being in like a little town. It's very cute.
Amazing. That's okay. That's so cool. Let's so like all of the aspects that you mentioned here, I would like to dive into everything, but maybe like first also what is it that you're doing right now, and how would you describe human design and how you work with that?
So human design is, for someone who's unfamiliar, I typically liken it to being an astrology reading plus a Myers Briggs personality test on
Mm.
steroids, because it is such an actionable way to understand yourself. Unlike, and I love traditional astrology, but I feel like a lot of times it's more of like, telling you your gifts, some of your personality traits, but there's really not much you can do with the information other than just have the self-awareness and maybe the self-acceptance about who you are. But human design is a blend of traditional astrology, I Ching, the chakra system, as well as quantum physics. And it's very much about understanding the energetics of who you are and how you are designed to interact with the world. And we all have specific ways we're meant to move through the world. In fact, there's like 5 very distinct ways that we're designed to move through the world.
Mm.
And human design really gives you your own energetic blueprint so that you can live out your authenticity and have this relationship with life where it feels like things are happening for you and with you versus against you or to you, right? It's this
Mm.
way to sort of learn how you flow with life as your most authentic self.
That's so beautiful. And that's also like what I experienced with this was that in so many different ways it's possible to like get stuck in the identity. But with this,
Yeah.
when I had the reading, it was almost like I got closer to me, like
Yes.
the real me, and not the identity that I've been building so much of my life on.
Yeah. And that, really, Anna, oh my gosh, I did it again. Anna, I'm so sorry. I need to move. I need to go somewhere where we speak more
But it's
elegantly.
good. I
Um,
like, I also a bit like the Americans, like Anna. I'm like, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, I'm here.
You might
So go
get
for it.
50% or more of that
Yeah.
from me on this call today. I'm sorry. But when we look at someone like your chart in particular, there's a lot of openness in you, right? And our charts, if for anyone listening, if you've never heard of human design before and you're like, how do I figure out, what I am and understand,
Mm.
there's chart generating softwares where you can plug in your exact birth details, including your birth time, the date, location, bring up your chart. And in our bodies, we have 9 energy centers. It's kind of similar to the chakra system. And the energy centers will either be open, so there'll be a white center indicating that this is where you take in energy from the world, or they'll be colored in, which means they're defined. And where we're defined is more where we are, who we are, how we're going to show up consistently. And someone like Anna's chart, there's a lot of openness. So that means that you move through the world incredibly susceptible to the conditioning of your environment. Everywhere from when you were a young child all the way to just up to the day to day conditioning we take in through the media, through all the things that the world tells us we should be and need to be worthy, to build a brand, to make money.
Yeah.
So I loved reading your session because there's so many beautiful gems in your chart of authenticity. And there are so
Mm.
many open centers where you may have been, taking in and trying on what it was you thought you should be.
Yep. That's exactly it. And that was what I think also you said, like what brings a unique sense to human design is that it also gives kind of like actionable steps. So it's like, it's not
Yeah.
only like, oh, you are like this. It's like, okay, you have a tendency to experience the world like this. If you choose this and this and this, it might be an easier experience. So
Yes, exactly. It's very tangible. And really, my love language with human design is breaking complex systems into really simple and tangible action steps. And
right.
I really do see the world through analogies and metaphors. I've always been that way. So it's been really fun to take something that can seem very complex and sort of dial in on what it is you need to know to actually create the transformation in your life. Like my number one goal when I work with clients isn't that they walk away knowing every single aspect of their chart because there's so much information, but it's that they know how to return back to their authentic place and how to lead from the part of them that knows the truth, how to lead from that place of power, that personal power that doesn't depend on the circumstances around you to make you feel powerful. But
Mm.
it's really that coming from that deep centered place inside of you, that could walk through any circumstances and still have your power.
Mm. I get so relaxed by this. I'm like, yeah, that's I mean, because it's so beautiful, like really when sensing into that energy, it's that okay, when I live my life in fullness and really feeling at home with myself, that is what you just described. And then other times it's like we're not in our authentic self or like knowing um like just for me, I know that I've been almost how to say, leaning more on what others think of me than
Hmm.
my own knowing.
Yeah.
So, and with this, then to just see that okay, but I very easily take in others' energies. I very easily am aware of a lot of things going on around me. But then again, what do I know here?
Hmm. Yeah. And the awareness of where you're taking an energy is such a game changer because once we're aware of it, even if it doesn't change how we feel right away, it doesn't make the feeling go away or that pressure go away necessarily. But when we start to understand that it actually isn't us and there's nothing we have to do differently to make it go away, right? There's nothing we
Yeah,
can do in our lives, or anything we need to change about ourselves. Rather, it's just an emotion or a feeling or something that's going to kind of flow through us. That's where the power is. Like the power is in not needing to always take radical action.
yeah,
Say, for someone like you, you're open in your solar plexus. I can very much relate to this. So am I. It means that we're open emotionally. So we'll take in everyone else's emotions around us. And before I understood human design, anytime I was feeling emotional discomfort, my goal was to make it go away. My goal was to fix it. And so growing up in my family, I didn't like if there was any conflict happening. Even when my dad and my sister every night at dinner, they would just kind of debate and argue, just to debate and argue. There was no end goal. It was just my
yeah.
sister says a peach is a fruit. My dad says it's something different. And they would just art like my mom used to pull out the dictionary. Like nine times out of 10, their arguments, I guess before Google, it would end with my mom going upstairs and getting like the encyclopedias. I don't know. Did you have encyclopedias or am I like just
Yeah,
way too old? Okay,
no,
so
that's
my mom would go upstairs and like
yep.
grab the encyclopedia to try to find the true answer, which is very much her design. She's very logical minded. So
Ah,
her way
okay.
of
Yeah.
squashing the conflict would be like, well, let me just figure out like what really is real. But I was really uncomfortable in that
Mm.
confrontation, in the conflict. And I really tried to shield myself as well as my brother, as well as even my dad and my sister from arguing in the first place. Like I would make it my mission to try to just make everybody get along because I couldn't sit in that heat. And that definitely carried into my adult life of not being incredibly non-confrontational, not asking for my needs from partners, work relationships, really just putting myself dead last because I always
Mm.
thought, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I always thought like, well, as long as everyone else is happy,
Yeah.
I'll still be happier. I'll still be happier if everyone around me is happy than I will if I'm happy, but everyone around me is unhappy. Like I needed my environment to feel a certain way.
Yeah, that's been like my mantra also. And I really seen like how that's been the pattern. Also, always going to that pattern when growing up, and yeah,
Yeah. And so just noticing once you have that awareness of like, wait a minute, your emotions are not yours. You in fact do pick them up from everyone around you. Oftentimes you intensify and amplify those emotions. So you're feeling it even stronger than the
right.
person sitting across from you that you think is so angry. You're likely feeling your anger 3 times more than they are anyway. And so it was so helpful for me when I looked at commitments that I was following through on that really didn't feel aligned because I was too afraid to say no, or even how I, live life with my partner who's emotionally defined. So he goes on a bit of an emotional wave, which is about 50% of the population has their own emotions. And they have emotional highs and they have emotional lows. And on an emotional high, they're like the best to be around because they're so much fun. And in an emotional low, they're, more melancholy or sad or
Mm,
more, just feeling feelings. I used to make him wrong every time he was in a
mm,
quote unquote bad mood. And I'd be like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why are you acting like this? And I would perpetuate and start like almost compounding the emotion on the bad mood. Do you know what I mean? When I say like
yeah.
the compound emotion, like instead of him just being sad, I'd be mad that he was sad. Then he'd be frustrated. Then I'm mad that he's sad. And it was this whole cycle of just stacking emotions on top of each other. And the true reason I would be mad or frustrated was because I didn't want to feel what he was feeling. And
Yeah.
I didn't believe I was free energetically. I thought that if he had that emotion, I had to have it because I did. Technically, we take their emotions, right? So, like, technically, if he was feeling it, I did have to sit in it. But when I learned human design, I realized, like, oh, if his natural way of being is to ebb in and out of emotions and just feel the purity of the emotion, my job is to be like a strainer and allow his emotions to flow through me and filter through me. But the more I resist them and the more I try to change them, the more that I create that resistance and that internal conflict, the harder it is for both of us.
Mm.
But also there's incredible skills like or tools in our toolbox, like walking away. Like,
Yeah.
you're in a bad mood. Perfect. Like, why don't you be in a bad mood for a few hours and I'm going to go outside and go for a walk? Or taking myself into the bathroom. I mean, at the time we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in New York City. We didn't have that much space that I could go be
Mm,
so far away from him, so outside of his aura. But I could go take a nice shower and maybe use some like Himalayan sea salt scrubs or something to sort of cleanse my aura and just come back to myself.
yeah.
And that ability to find your equilibrium and come back to you and your essence and not rely again on other people to get there. Because again, I was really living in just circumstantial happiness. I
Mm,
was happy when he and everyone else around me was happy. And the minute one person wasn't, I could not emotionally deal with it. So that this is just one of the 9 centers, and this is just one example of how understanding how you take and receive energy can just be such an incredible tool for getting you back to you.
yeah. And it's so true because then also you don't have to go into that like just in the example then in your relationship that you actually works in different ways. So because and to where do I want to go with this? Just for me it has been such a strength to see that not everyone works like me because I've also then been trying to make others feel good but by what I feel good with, which is also not the case all the time.
So
Like
true.
really we need different ways of doing and we're just ourselves in different ways.
It's so freeing, right?
Yeah.
Because then we can release our expectations for everybody else to behave the way we do.
Yeah.
And when they can release their expectations that we're going to move through life the way they do, then there's space for everybody, there's room for everybody. But so much of it is really in our earliest conditioning, and it's in the paradigm that we're experiencing right now. There people are waking up and moving through the world much differently, and I know this conversation of human design is something that's just going to continue to grow and grow, but we have a lot of unbecoming to do. We have a lot of releasing to do. We have a lot
Mm.
of healing to do, because we're, I don't know about your school system, but I mean, I was certainly taught, and I know schools are still operating in this way. There's one way to learn. There's one way to pass your tests. There's one way to function. We hear things like, just hustle and hard work. And if you don't work hard, you're never going to get there. And I'm not saying that, um, I would love if I could really share with people and mean it like, oh, no, 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 life just gets to be easy. Cause of course, that'd be so fun. I believe life has its challenges. Life in and of itself is like walking up a mountain. There's going to be times where the incline is really hard and your calves get sore and your lungs, you feel short of breath, and maybe it's going to rain. And life in and of itself has turbulence. But what I feel we want to release is we don't want to push boulders up the mountain. We don't want to put rocks in our shoes. We don't want to army crawl through the mud when we could simply just walk. And living not in our design, like living outside of our internal alignment, is really like taking that path of struggle every single time. Like if you are moving through the world, for you, an example, as a projector, if you're moving through the world trying to operate like me as a manifesting generator, you're going to feel like you're pushing a rock up a hill the whole time. And the sad thing I find too, I see this a lot in my parents' generation, is that because people don't know how to make authentic decisions for themselves based off what their heart truly desires, based off their inner hell yes, the thing that feels like it lights their soul on fire, and they choose careers based off of safety or based off of pleasing their parents or based off what they think they should do. A lot of times they get to the top of that mountain and it's not even the summit that they expected to see. It's not that feeling of fulfillment. It's like they're on the wrong mountain the whole time. Like not only was it struggle, but it wasn't even the right climb. And I believe that human design really teaches us through, the most essential part of it all, which is our authority. Our inner authority is how we're designed to make decisions. And once you know that about yourself, once you understand your inner voice, your inner authority, then that determines that you do walk up the right mountain. At least the climb is worth it in the end. And I think there's nothing more valuable than that, than feeling like you're living your life in purpose.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I think also, like, to the school example you gave, I just know for myself in school, especially the lower classes, I was always told that I was shy and I didn't speak up in class, and that was like a problem because everyone needs to take space and so on. And I find that kind of funny now, also because I did myself very wrong for that, and my parents had to deal with it and so on. And now I'm like here, like having a podcast, like really being visible with what I'm working with. Like this is really what I enjoy, like enjoy using my voice and just being in a way that was not something that I felt that I could do in the classroom.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, what really, when we really embrace all our differences, even early on, what different world would that be?
I know. I think about that all the time. And actually, when I look at your chart, Anna, I don't know if we talked about this in our session, but your environment style is observer. You are very
Okay.
receptive in a lot of your energy. And so, one of the things that is really important for you before you're ready to share yourself, share your heart, is that you feel like you're in a safe environment, that it's under your terms. And actually, in bigger public spaces or inside of learning classrooms, you'd feel more comfortable at your desk, sitting back and watching the rest of the room. Just like
Yeah.
from that state, that's your energetic sort of homeostasis. Is when it's a lot of eyes on people, you'd rather just be sitting there watching, taking in the information in a really receptive way. But then, of course, when it comes time to sharing your energetic gifts and your creativity, and you have so many of them, you'll do it from a space of absolute safety and autonomy,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Versus like this forced participation.
Yeah.
Because you creating a podcast is so different than the teacher sort of just rapid fire selecting you and
Yeah.
calling you up to the front of the room.
Mm.
You're not able to get that, that calibration. You're not able to get yourself in your thoughts centered, to go out and share from your authentic self. You're sort of just being like spotlighted, and that is not great for those that are meant to be observers.
Mm.
Um, So, and it's not necessarily that you're always an observer of life. It's more just the energy or style. It's very receptive. It's very leaned back. And you have to decide when you want to call it forward.
Yeah. And I think that is like then what I find beauty with this is that, yeah, and that is really how I, how to say, experience the world. But then if I try to like, okay, but I have to speak up here because that is what you have to do, then that becomes like a strain on me. Like it takes energy rather than being like, okay, in this format or in this environment, it's okay to observe, like allowing myself that. And then in others, speak up and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. And imagine being taught that.
I know.
And imagine being like that was encouraged and supportive of like share when you feel expanding and exciting to share, and not
Yeah.
a minute before. Just sit back in your power. You know, as projector, there's so much power in your silence. With the open throat center, the open throat always, which you have, it always experiences pressure to like speak now or no one will ever hear you,
Mm.
or don't speak at all because what you have to say doesn't matter. Those are sort of the two shadow sides of it. Is like, hurry up and say it, or just don't even say it because no one cares. But when you can sit in your power for a moment and really tap into your authority, which is your spleen, which is your intuition, you can decide from that place, like, is it empowering to share? Is this the message I'm going to feel better after I speak out loud? And when you
Yeah.
share from a place of power, it's like someone just handed you a megaphone, kind of like you on the podcast right now, right? Like
Mm.
it's broadcasted out to the world. It has more lasting power, staying power. But when you speak from a space of scarcity or a better or pressure or conditioning, it's almost like you're speaking out into the ethers and like no one's listening or paying attention. The words
Mm.
aren't received in the same energy when they don't come from that place of power.
Yeah. I'm like, yes. Yes. It's, and I find that is again like then embracing that experience. And I can notice that like with my voice. So when I try to say something that is not, how to say, for me to say, or it actually won't bring the greater good in some way,
Mm.
I my throat starts to hurt like really much. Like I physically get like really strained throat. And then when it's like when I'm really kind of almost downloading information through speaking, it's just like flowing and I can talk for as long as possible.
Wow. That makes so much sense. I mean, it's a lot of this is energetics, but there's 1,000% physical
Mm.
aspects to it, where when we're forcing or pushing our energy, it manifests as illness or
Yeah.
discomfort in the physical body. So the sore throat, or feeling like maybe your throat is blocked, or some
Mm.
people will get like swollen lymph. I see a lot of that in my clients. And I also
Mm.
see a huge commonality to GI and stomach issues for those folks that are not listening to their gut. So if you're a gut led person like myself, and you ignore your gut, it manifests as stomach issues. Or if you're, say, a projector like yourself, and you are overworking yourself, overworking your body, and you don't have that defined gut energy that is required to work, you know, the traditional 9 to 5 hours in the day, the generator manifesting generator energy, that will can also manifest as stomach issues or as just physical illness in
Mm.
the body.
So, and now you've been mentioning projector sometimes, and that is so maybe we can go into like the difference. So, because that is like the main difference that we can be, right? You can be a
So
projector, and then for others.
yeah, so the five archetypes, essentially they're energy archetypes in human design. These are the categories that each energy type can fall into, and they have a lot of things in common, right? With each energy type will have a lot in common with its own energy type. And then below that, there is just the complexity of what it
Yeah.
means to be a human, and the million different nuanced ways your chart can be different and show up differently. So I first just want to say that the energy types are not your personality. They're just how you are designed energetically to move through the world. But you will, I'll explain quickly about the 5 types and who they are, but you will be able to identify with aspects of yourself that are your type. So the 5 types are the manifestors. And the human design manifestors are the only energy type that's actually here to truly initiate and to create immediate impact when they feel the time is right and that they're ready to get something done. The manifestor is here to create impact and initiate like at the snap of their fingers. They really are the ones who that Nike slogan, just do it, is
Mm.
for. Like, you want something, go get it. The manifestors don't need to wait. They just wait on their own internal timing and then they can rock and roll.
Mm.
And they're called manifestors because they manifest life at rapid speeds, or they have the ability to manifest life at rapid speeds. And they're quite rare. They make up less than 10% of the population. And the manifestors have an incredibly large aura that is here to impact life. So everywhere they go, they're impacting and sort of like leaving a dent almost everywhere they go. And their aura needs to do a couple things. It needs to impact and it also needs to keep them safe energetically. So back in the day when we lived in tribes, we would have one manifestor per every tribe. And the role of the manifestor, or sometimes two, but the role of the manifestor would be to be the one in charge, to tell everybody what to do. They have that initiation ability. So they would spark things. They were creating order. They were creating, the world as we know it today. So the manifestor will be the one in charge. And their aura needed to protect them so that nobody would try to overthrow them in the middle of the night and kill the
Mm.
manifestor. Because if the manifestor was taken out, then the tribe did not stand a very good chance at being able to progress and continue to move forward. So they still have that very sort of protective layer in their aura that can sometimes be described as repelling because it's sort of there to push out. It pushes anyone away
Mm.
that is not in alignment, that's going to get in the way of the manifestor fulfilling the creation that they need to make. And so with that, manifestors at a young age may find that they have, some conflict with authority, teachers, their parents, or that not all the kids want to play nicely in the sandbox with the manifestor. And it's not personal, it's just a game of energetics. It's just that this person's aura is really strong. And so, what a lot of manifestors will do is they'll start to compromise their energetic power in exchange for amicability and to play well in the sandbox with everybody, or because they're tired of getting in trouble. So a lot of times manifestors will end up really moving through life in sort of this disempowered way where they're overly apologetic, overly people pleasing to almost make up for this really big, powerful aura they have.
Mm.
So sometimes when I share manifestor with clients, I would say it's about 50-50%. 50% say, I don't relate to being a manifestor. I'm not powerful. And it shows me right away sort of the way that they were conditioned when they were younger and how they chose to move through life at a very young age. And then there's other manifestors that are like 1,000%. That's me. I'm so powerful. I get anything done that I want. I get everything I want. And they sort of know it and they own it and they own their power. And I have so many examples of manifestor clients and humans that I know just doing some of the most incredible things in the world. Once they know their power, once they know how they're designed to move through time and space. Like one of my clients, for an example, her name is Hanan. Manifestor, she led the first ever yoga retreat in Saudi Arabia, which is
Oh,
like
wow.
so huge. And the way that manifestors are designed to move through the world, so each energy type has their own strategy. The manifestor strategy is to inform those who will be affected. That's it. So it's not sit back and worry about whose feelings might be hurt or do this apologetic dance around or question whether you're capable of it or not or wait on the perfect timing from the universe. It's about having the manifestor sort of urge that takes over to create, to make, to do, to create impact, feeling the timing in your own body that you're ready. And then it's sitting down and thinking of who will be affected or impacted by this that just needs a heads up.
Mm.
I'm not going to ask their permission. I'm just going to tell them it's coming, and then I'm going to go do it. And once the informing has happened, there's a lot more peace around the manifester. And the manifester's signature, their energetic signature, is peace. To feel at peace with themselves, to feel at peace in their, they're making their impact, that they can really be incredibly effective, and that's how they'll know they're on the right track, is when they're feeling that signature.
Okay.
So those are the manifestors. And then we have the generator type. So we have generators, pure generators, and manifesting generators. And the essence of generators is that I'm a manifesting generator, we have a defined sacral center. And that is the part of us that is here to work, is here to sort of have that staying power when it comes to putting in the long hours and getting things done. It's the life force energy that allows the entire planet to thrive. It's the energy needed for sexuality. It's the energy needed to create and to raise families. Sacral energy is so, so important. And collectively, generators and manifesting generators make up about 70% of the world. So it is a generator's world. It is a generator planet. Like, it's just thriving and bursting with this life force energy. And if you are not a generator or manifesting generator and you're going, oh no, do I not have access to life force? You have access to life force because it's everywhere around you. Like, there's generators everywhere. There's someone is going to have it. So you get to have it, but you don't make it yourself. So it's sort of a transferred energy. And the way I describe the generators, manifesting generators, it's like, picture every single day with our sacral energy that we're walking around energetically as a pot of coffee. And every person we interact with, we're pouring coffee from our pot into their empty cup. So this is how we transfer our energy to everyone else. So the number one job of a generator or manifesting generator is to make good energy. It's to do the things that we love and engage with work we love. That's going to help us make more coffee. When we do things we love and we, shine our heart in the right work, the work gives back to us. It's regenerative. But when we're doing work we don't love, or we're doing work we sort of love, but not for the right people or not for the right energetic exchange, it can tend to really drain our life force from us.
Yeah.
And then we're walking around trying to serve other people from an empty pot. So that is really the biggest goal for generators, manifesting generators, is that we are in play and that we're in love with life, that we're doing things we really deeply love. Now, the pure generators are here to build mastery over time. So they're going to be the ones that will probably more likely to stick with one career or stay in one sort of industry and build their way up to mastery for their legacy. So it's really legacy work for generators. Doesn't mean they have to stick with one thing, but they have that staying power. And then the manifesting generators, we are here to be nonlinear, multifaceted beings, and we don't climb a linear path. We actually, rather than take the traditional, ladder of our career, we almost climb a spiral staircase. So we tend to stack a lot of different skills on top of each other, and those skills end up adding up to a ton of upward mobility and a ton of growth, but not in ways that you would traditionally expect. And this was really the whole of my 20s, was trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with my life? And I was just the perfect example of someone that had dabbled in many careers and it didn't seem like they would add up at all. And I started getting really worried by the time I was like 26. I was like, am I going anywhere with this? Like, I had been a receptionist at a salon. I became a salon manager. I loved the beauty industry, but I went to school for writing. And then I worked in a PR, or I worked in PR and I worked in advertising. And then I gave it all up and moved to New York City when I was 25. And I lived on a couch and I went to yoga teacher training and I became a yoga instructor while I was doing my side PR business that I had started. And only after I graduated from yoga teacher training and started teaching, I was like, well, that was actually really easy. Maybe I could just, become that hairdresser I always wanted to be. So 6 months after I became a yoga teacher, I went to cosmetology school and got licensed to be a hairdresser. And by
Ah.
that point, I was 26 and I thought, I am ancient. Everyone in school is like 18, 20 years old. I'm so far behind. And I have to make this my career forever at this point. Like, you're
Hmm.
done changing. You can't change again. So I go into the salon, and lo and behold, I start getting unhappy like 6 months into it. Just like, I know there's so much more. I know there's so much more for me. What am I going to do next? And I stuck it out for like 6 more months, but I was getting beaten up left and right by the universe, was trying so desperately to get me out, to the point where I ended up needing knee surgery. And a week after I went back from my knee surgery to the salon where I worked as a stylist on my feet all day, I still
Hmm.
had my knee brace on. I fell down a flight of stairs and I broke my opposite foot.
Wow.
And this is what I'm saying when I say, like,
Ooh.
it can really manifest. Like, if you're not
Yes.
listening to your authority, like, and you're not listening to your inner knowing, which I denied mine every single day when I walked through those doors of that salon, I needed like a kick in the butt.
Yeah.
And so that was my way out. So I ended up leaving. I didn't know my next game plan, but I very soon after, and I'm a 4 profile like you, and essentially that's another aspect of the human design chart. But for Anna and I, we have in common that like our community and our network is everything for
Hmm.
us. And due to my community, my network, the man who I had worked for years ago managing his salon in Boston had called me and said there was a job open at L'Oreal that he actually thought I'd be a really good candidate for. But
Okay.
the kicker was I needed 10 years experience as a hairdresser, and I had one year. But this story I share is so important because this is the manifesting generator sort of magic that a lot of people don't know about. I went for the interview anyway. And I'll never forget, I was interviewing with the vice president of education. And he said to me, on paper, I can't hire you. And I was like, okay. And I
Hmm.
said, thank you so much for your time. And he goes, well, on paper, but like, why should I hire you? And I remember sharing with him, I was like, well, listen, I know the ins and outs of the beauty industry. I worked in the salon, booking clients behind, not working behind the chair as
Hmm.
a stylist, but I did that for 4 years when I was in college. I know education. I understand how to write, and I'm going to be really great, like bridging the gap between the, corporate side and the education and the hairdressers, because that's what the role was for. I was meant to manage like 30 hairdressers. And I said, and also I am a teacher. I'm a yoga teacher because I've had to teach the
Yeah.
hairdressers things. He said, how are you going to teach hairdressers who have like 20 more experience than you? You've only been a hairdresser for 1 year. I said, listen, I said, I can make 50 people in the middle of rush hour in a studio in Times Square inhale and exhale at the same exact time.
Yeah.
I can do this job. And so he said yes. And so overnight, I went from cleaning hair out of the drains at the salon I was working at. And I was like the bottom stylist on the barrel, like horrible pay, horrible treatment, long hours, to graduating to this like incredible dream job of getting a company car, managing 30 hairdressers. And it looked like it happened overnight. So everyone was like, oh my God, wow,
Yeah.
that quantum leap. But well, no one had that terminology at the time, but
Yeah.
right now that's what you would call it. But like, actually, I had been building that
Yeah.
job since day one in college. That's when I started. The first day I knocked on the doors of that salon and went for my first
Mm.
interview was the very first day I actually started training for that job. And I almost had exactly 10 years experience. I was like a year shy
Wow.
of 10 years
That's
experience. I
so
got hired at 27 and I started working at the salon at 18. And my whole life, like everything I had lived up into that moment
Yeah.
was making me the perfect candidate. And I ended up getting promoted the next year. Like I just skyrocketed. And everyone used to say, you're such a unicorn. How can we find someone that has all the skills you have? And I kept saying, well, like it never made sense. So lo and behold, when I found human design, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and I want people to know this, not just like if you are a manifesting generator. I just want you to know that like everyone is designed to move through the world differently. And like when you allow yourself to do the things that you really love, it does work out. Like if you're listening to your
Mm.
authority and you're following that inner calling, it really works out. So that was a very long-winded manifesting generator, but I know you
No,
had
it's
shared to hear a little about my story too.
yes, no, I mean, that's what I find so, yeah, like that's amazing to hear. Like I just get chills like when you say that w- even in that situation then that he says like yeah on paper and but then you also allow yourself to see what you have, like in
Mhm.
that moment kind of embracing that okay it doesn't look like what you are exactly searching, but I have even more than what you're searching almost.
Yeah.
So and that is that beautiful thing of how even like going through life is like universe how why does nothing make sense and then being like oh it was just part of a greater plan than I could even figure out.
It 1,000%.
Mm.
And that same energy and that same knowing and that same trust is what ended up allowing me to eventually leave that job and
Yeah.
start my human design business. But I
Mm.
will tell you, for a very long time before I knew human design, I believed that that opportunity was the stars aligning for me in a once in a lifetime way, and that nobody was ever going to give me something as good as that.
Ah,
That's what I really believed. I was like, this
yeah.
job was destined for me, because what other job would ever allow all my skills to come together like this and ever give me such a platform? And I mean, my wildest dreams came true at L'Oreal. I got to do a TED Talk before 30 years old at on a L'Oreal stage in New York City. I mean, the
Mm.
amount of travel and places I got to go and stages I got to speak on and things, like it was just the dream from the outside. And I always told myself it'll never get better than this, right?
Mm.
But now, once I found this system and I realized the reason that happened for me was because I all the while always listened to my inner knowing. I always listened and I always landed on my feet. And that job was part of my journey, but it is not my final
Yeah.
destination. That was a huge leap of faith. But also, at the point I left my job to go full time in my business, I'd been doing human design for almost 4 years.
Mm.
And I had just seen so much evidence of, I had just seen so much evidence of the magic of what this system can do, that I don't even want to say it was faith. It was like a knowing. Like I was like, I know
Yeah.
if I leave, it's going to be okay.
Mm.
Actually, and Anna, can I share something so cool with you?
Yeah.
So I have been doing some corporate workshops for the past 2 years now. So as soon as I started my company, I think like 2 months later, I started doing some corporate workshops around human design. And
Mm.
sometimes I do smaller companies or bigger companies. Well, I'm doing my first L'Oreal human design workshop next month. And
Okay.
that was the biggest full circle moment of my entire life, when they actually
Mm.
recognized uh, this, and they recognized me, because that was the company that I, again, like I said, that I felt I owed my life to that business.
Yeah.
And for them to come back, and now I'm doing this work to help transform their teams. It is
Wow.
something that is like the most reassuring nod from the universe I could ever receive. It's more than the workshop, it's more than the contract, it's more than any of it. It's just like, again, this is the evidence of, you're on the right path. To be doing that work,
Mm.
or to do this work there, to me is just, it's beyond anything. I'm so excited.
Congratulations. That's really nice. And also, as you say, like how now that even more you bloom and like really doing your thing, and in that also gets invited and gets like recognized. It's always that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And speaking of recognized and invited, should we talk about your type next?
Mm.
Because that was on
Yes.
my roster, projectors. So that sums it up, right? For the generators, manifesting
Mm.
generators, it's about listening to our our inner authorities. It's about listening to um, what feels like a hell yes for us in our life, and life will you will attract life to you. When you're a generator, manifesting generator, your aura is like a magnet and it pulls life in. And when you are doing the right things, your energetic signature is that you'll be satisfied and that you'll
Mm.
feel. And when I heard satisfied, I thought, oh, that's so boring. I want ecstasy. I don't want
Yeah.
satisfaction. But truly, it's like that deep, fulfilled feeling when you
Yeah.
lay your head on the pillow at the end of the night and you know, like you've given your all to something you love. That's our signature, and there really is nothing better than that incredibly fulfilled feeling.
Mm.
So, up next, projectors. Projectors are percentage wise, it's really hard to say, but they're somewhere in the low 20s, low 20%
Mhm.
somewhere. And they do not have a defined sacral center like the generators and manifesting generators, nor do they have a defined throat center that connects to another motor center in their body like the manifestors. So our projectors are energetically quite open. And I think of their aura is much lighter, but it's also this incredible sort of almost like X-ray vision they have into life. So they have the ability to really see into things very deeply, to see into other people very deeply. And this essence to their energy that's meant to like move through the world in sort of an elevated way. So the story I always tell is that let's pretend that the game of life is to get the most acorns, and
Mm.
that the squirrels in the forest are represented by the generators and manifesting generators. So, like 70% of the forest are squirrels running around trying to get acorns. Every day, the squirrels run up the tree, they grab the acorns and they come back down, they stack them in a pile, and that's it. That's the game of life. And so one day, someone like Anna is born projector into the squirrel community and looks around and just sees what the squirrels are doing. And eventually you're like, okay, yeah, I get the game of life. It's to get the most acorns, no problem. So you start sort of moving around like you've seen the squirrels do before, climb up the tree, grab the acorn, put it in a pile. And you're really good at it until one day you realize you're getting more acorns than everyone else at the end of every day, but you're just so exhausted. So you take a little break and you walk by the river. And for the first time, you catch a glimpse of your own reflection and you realize you're not a squirrel at all. You're actually a bird. And you see your wings and you flap your little wings and you decide to see if you can fly. So you fly over the forest. And from that position in the sky, you actually can see that all the good acorns are just a few acres away, that there's
Mm.
trees with hundreds of more acorns, and all your squirrel friends are hanging out in a pretty deserted area. So when you come back down, because all the squirrels could see you fly, they're so curious to know what you saw up there. And now you can lead and guide them to the more profitable trees, right? And so you follow me,
Mm.
I'll show you the way. So you fly back up, they follow you. And then while you're up there, you also notice that it seems like a waste of energy that each squirrel is running all the way up the tree, grabbing the acorn and putting it in a pile. So from here, you can kind of energetically rearrange the squirrels and how they're working and create an assembly line and make it so effective so everyone's much more profitable. The thing is that a lot of projectors, you are all meant to have this beautiful vision, this big picture vision, these moments where you get this incredible clarity about how things could be done differently and better. But a lot of projectors are still operating in that squirrel
Yeah.
role. And as long as you are on the ground doing the squirrel things with the acorns, you're not going to get that big vision. You can't get the vision when you've got your beak in the dirt. And so what will happen a lot is the projectors will start knowing, you're different, you have great ideas, you have big vision, but you're getting frustrated because no one's listening. But the reason no one's listening is because you're not doing better than anyone else. You're just on the ground doing what they're doing, and you're burnt out and you're frustrated. And you oftentimes the projectors will get really bitter. And
Yeah.
sometimes I see projectors like they go and they stand in the middle of the squirrels and they're like, listen to me. I have wings. Listen to me. But the squirrels are not going to listen to you until they
Mm.
see you fly. They
Mm.
have to be able to know that you're a credible source. They have to know that you have some street credit before they're going to take your word for it. If you're doing exactly what they're doing, there's no interest of them to listen to you. So
Yeah.
the projector strategy, technically on paper, is to wait for the invitation. To wait for the invitation. And the reason projectors are meant to wait for the invitation is because you tend to see people's bald spots. When you're flying up high, you tend to like see things that people are not ready to admit or address.
Mm.
And so before you give anybody advice or before you push your way through, you want to make sure that that other person is energetically open to receive what you're going to share. If they're not open to receive your advice, it's literally like an energetic ball that hits a wall and comes back and hits you in the face. Like it doesn't feel good for either of you. So we want to make sure that the birds are, willing to, and the squirrels are willing to receive what you have to say. And so rather than sit back and wait to be chosen, wait for someone else to pick you, it's about choosing yourself and leading yourself. Go have that moment in the river. Go, look up projectors online. Like if you're loving this and this is resonating with you so much, like give yourself the opportunity to really truly recognize yourself. Like what are your gifts?
Mm.
What are the things you love to do? What makes you unique? Have a human design reading. That, oh my gosh, projectors love human design readings because it's someone is able to really be such a mirror to them and really see
Yeah.
them. When you're seeing and recognizing yourself and then you're embodying that energy, like you're going up and you're flying and you're just focused on being you, you're just doing your thing. That's when you're incredibly magnetic. That's when
Mm.
the squirrels want to know how to be led by you. That's when the invitations just can't stop coming because everyone sees you doing your thing and they're so attracted to you. But when we're sitting down on the ground, like pouting or like flapping our wings and yelling, you're not going to get an invitation because it's of no benefit to anyone to hear your point of view. So a lot of projectors don't like the strategy, wait for the invitation, because they think they have to just sit back in this like disempowered state. But I say, don't wait for the invitation, magnetize the invitation. Go get busy being
Yeah.
yourself. Go do your thing. Um, how does this all resonate with you? And
Yeah.
can you share a little about your projector experience?
Yeah, I mean, when I heard this, I think this story was the thing that got me to really book the session with you. The first time I heard this, because it's so spot on with everything that I've been experiencing in life with just this of like trying to be like everyone else, not really understanding why I get so much tired when others seem to get energy from it. And then just realizing, oh, I'm just like, it's just different. It's not, I'm not better. They are not better. No one is worse. It's just a different way. And then the more like just also having that, like not having to sit and wait, but actually the more I fly, the more everything in life will work and I will also have fun at the same time.
Yes, I love that. And it's so much more empowering and just a lighter approach than because for me, like sitting back and waiting for something almost feels like either you're powerless or you're trying to earn it, like
Yeah.
earn the recognition or earn, and it feels the opposite of just this like absolute freedom and autonomy that human design is meant to bring us.
And I get another aspect of this today than I've been hearing before. And also this of like that we do our thing. It doesn't mean one specific thing. It's almost more like what energy am I in? So if I'm just like sitting, waiting around and thinking that everything should work out by itself, then will probably become bitter because I'm not like in life and active and flying, like showing myself. But then like following those energies, like where am I actually going to fly? Like how does that look for me in this moment, in that moment, and in that moment? And then it's all like starting to roll. And maybe it looks very different than what we think flying looks like.
Mm, so true. And I always say that if we had a quota like if there was a number of acorns that that projector had to hit every single day, or they'd feel like an absolute failure, or like you'd be deemed as a failure. Say you had to get 15 acorns every single day, or you failed. um it's so detrimental and so damaging, because if you don't feel like you have permission to step outside of the world's quota, the way the world wants you to do something, what other people's success looks like, to go recognize yourself in the river, go see that you're actually a bird, then go fly over the forest and then lead the squirrels to thousands of more acorns, you everyone misses out. Like we all miss out.
Yeah.
Like, so you got your 15 acorns, but actually like we lost out on 1,000 extra a day because you decided that you needed to try to be like the rest of us. It's just not beneficial. Like net, it doesn't net out. But there is that moment of going against the grain and saying, no, I
Mm,
think that going to look at myself in the water for 2 hours is effect. Like, how do we justify that in advance? You can't. It's almost like only after you look back on it in hindsight can you understand why that was so valuable.
yeah.
And this is, the importance of personal development and, working on your own growth and your own evolution and regulating your nervous system and, taking the courses and the classes that you want to take and allowing yourself to be and to embody the you want to be,
Mm,
and letting that be your ultimate stamp of self worth versus how much you physically do each day, how much you got quote unquote done in your business, how many things you crossed off your list. Because the things and the lists of stuff and the like transactional things are not what make you magical. We could have someone else come into your business and do those things for you. It's your essence and your vision that's going to bring the business to places that no one could ever dream of. And like
mm,
only the projectors can actually get off the ground and fly. The squirrels, really, like you, squirrels can be only on the ground and could never fly. But the birds could be either on the ground or fly. Like you're the only ones that can fly, but you also could just spend your whole life collecting acorns or half your
mm,
week collecting acorns. And so it's kind of about like coming back to like, what is my actual superpower? What are the things that only I can do for my life, for my business? And of course, in the beginning, when you're just starting, it's very normal and natural to wear multiple hats. But it's like getting out of that idea that overworking and overcommitting and overforcing and overpushing will yield you the same results, versus maybe it's like, just how can I be this week?
yeah.
Who do I show up as? Can I integrate my authentic self more? And watch as that is actually what brings in the invitations.
And yeah, it's so beautiful. And I'm also thinking about this, how we have like the differences. There's a lady in Sweden that works with animal communication, and she talks a lot about that the group of animals, they all have their different traits, and how important it is for that group to survive, that everyone really embraces their their role and not like trying to take someone else's or and so on. Like everyone kind of like trust, and the greater good for everyone will work out when everyone is like true to themselves and taking care of that thing. And for me, that becomes so beautiful in that it's not something that is more important than the other, but when everyone embraces that, it will just become a more beautiful experience for everyone.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, and this is why I am so passionate about bringing this to companies and to large corporations
Mm,
to really see and start to understand how you can actually create the most fulfilling environments for your employees, but also B, how you can really get the most benefit out of the employees. Like
yeah.
if you have a manifester on your team who's here to create impact and make big things happen and initiate, but they're not so great at the follow through, and they're not here to do all the other, all the aspects of the execution totally on their own. Like, well, then they should be in like a project starter position where they're kicking
Mm.
things off, right? They're getting things done, but then they have a team of people around them to actually take on the doing. The projectors are so much more valuable in positions of leadership or strategy. And when people are not following you around, like making sure you worked your daily quota of hours, because that break you take to go outside or you clocking off at 3 p.m., that's where you get to do the big vision stuff. That's where all the
Mm.
flying takes place. It doesn't happen when you're at your desk answering emails.
Mm.
And so if we can start to understand and honor how each other function, like you said, it works well. Every single person benefits when
Yeah.
people are in the right roles.
Hmm. So nice. And then, so is there
One more.
reflector also, right?
That's it. Yeah,
Mm.
reflector. And reflectors are so rare. They make up less than 1% of the population. And reflectors' energy will be completely open. So I know I mentioned earlier that when you look at the body graph, you see the 9 energy centers. In a reflector's chart, the 9 energy centers are all white, which means they really take on and reflect the environments around them. And back in the day, the role of reflectors would be sort of to sit in the center of the tribe and to be the barometer of the health and the well-being for their community. So you could go
Mm.
to your reflector, look in her eyes, and simply just by how she was doing would let you know the overall health and well-being of the tribe. Like, we're healthy, we're going to make it through winter. Oh no, we're not looking so good. We have to adjust accordingly.
Okay.
So reflectors have a very reflective aura, and it's almost a little bit like a Teflon where nothing ever fully sticks or penetrates, because it would be just way too much for our completely open centered beings taking on everyone's stuff permanently.
Mm.
So, like, not that any conditioning needs to be permanent, but it doesn't deeply penetrate into their systems the way that it would for say yourself with a couple of open energy centers,
Mm.
right? And their role again is just to sort of mirror back sort of the sum of all parts of the people in their communities. And for the reflectors, they're deeply affected, as you can imagine, by the people they surround themselves by where they live, by their environments. So for reflectors, it's really about, curating your space, like making sure your home is a beautiful reflection of the person that you want to be, the person you want to feel like, the people you're surrounding yourself with are people that uplift you and that are people who are going in directions in life that you also want to go in. So if you hang out with like a bunch of people who are really dedicated to their businesses and taking good care of their body, you have like a 99.9% chance of running a beautiful business and being in great health and vitality. But if you start hanging out in the wrong circles, there's a 99.9% chance
Mm.
that that's going to pull you down as well. So it's really kind of like, I don't know if you've heard of the KonMari method of like, get rid of anything that
Yeah.
doesn't spark joy. But
Yeah.
for reflectors, it's like, get rid of anything in your life
Yeah.
that does not spark joy. And I also kind of say for reflectors, like, picture their aura is like the surface of the ocean. So it's
Mm.
going to reflect back everything that's happening around it, but deep below that surface layer,
Yeah.
there's their own ecosystem. And the reflectors certainly do have their own gifts and their own talents and their own things that make them so authentically them. So it's very important for reflectors to spend time in their own waters, to get plenty of time journaling and in nature and
Mm.
kind of coming back to themselves and their essence. And their strategy in life is really to wait for a lunar cycle before making big decisions.
Mm.
So they would want to allow themselves to sort of go through the ebbs and the flows of the entire month, and allow themselves kind of to be like a Goldilocks and try on all these different options and different outcomes before they can land on the decision that just intuitively feels so right for them.
Wow.
So their job is to take things slower, in this world where we want answers yesterday and everyone has to know right now. Reflectors are the ones that come back to being like, what's the rush, right? When a reflector
Mm.
is really living in their authenticity and alignment, they're here to take their time and be really spacious and conscious about how they move into decisions, as well as hold space for us. Reflectors, we all have a reflector somewhere in our lives, although they're like less than 1% of the population. There's always one or two somewhere in your varying
Mm.
communities. Um, and they're here to show us who we are, and show us really how humanity is doing as a whole.
Mm.
And when reflectors feel good and they're surrounded by the right environments, their energetic signature is delight and surprise. So we know for reflectors that when they feel good, it's because they're in the right environment with the right people. And when they don't feel good, one of those two things usually needs to change.
Okay. Wow. So beautiful. I
Yeah.
think it's also so nice because this is then, I mean, there's so much detail level possible with human design, but this is like the overview of like, okay, there's actually differences in all of us. And also like, I mean, I think everyone would feel good about then surrounding yourself with people that make you feel good. But then looking at someone who's a generator and a reflector, it will affect them very differently. Like a generator can still feel really, really good, like regardless of how people feel around them, right? Am I taking that the
Yeah.
right way?
Like say you're doing a job you love and there's an annoying coworker who's always in a bad mood. You, if you love what you're doing, you can kind of put up with them. You're right. Nobody wants to be around people who are not, who are always so negative and pulling you down. But like, you're not going to start to become that person. You're
Yeah.
not going to start taking
Right.
on fully their thoughts and their essence, whereas a reflector will almost start to
Yeah.
just mirror that back, and like
Mm.
they may leave that person and find themselves still being like, thinking like, acting like
Mm.
that person. But of course, through our open energy centers, you could be open emotionally and you'll take that person's emotions on. If you're a
Yeah.
generator like yourself, projector, I'm open emotionally, I'm a manifesting generator. Open head, you can take in their thoughts and questions.
Mm.
So we still do take stuff, but reflectors kind of take all of it.
Mm.
And that's why it affects them so deeply. But to your point, it's really, I always find it to be a very clarifying moment for people when they can hear the 5 types, because then you get to hear those differences and
Yeah.
realize, wow, these are, very different ways of moving through the world. And a lot of times I think we believe everyone is like us.
Mm.
I used to, before I understood human design.
Yeah.
I just thought like what
Me
my
too.
gifts and skills were was just everybody was that way. We also tend to undersell the parts of us that just come to us so naturally. So like never considered some of my gifts to be gifts because they just came so easily. I would never think to charge for it or um, you know, make it a thing at all. It was just, doesn't everybody have this? And it's really through human design where you get to see sort of like those inner workings of people's charts, and especially looking at the 5 types and all those things where you're like, whoa, we are all so different.
Yeah.
And if we each could lean into our authentic piece of the puzzle, then together we could have this gorgeous, beautiful picture of humanity where we're all playing our puzzle piece. But I think a lot of us, we want to be like someone else or everybody else. Like you see people succeeding in, I think we talked about this in our session, like you see people succeeding in the online space and you think, okay, I have to copy their strategy. I have to do what
Mm.
they're doing, their approach. But that's kind of like you deciding that being an end piece or a corner piece of the puzzle is better than being the piece that you
Mm.
are. And you're trying to shove yourself somewhere where you don't fit, and it's not going to fit and it's not going to flow and it's not going to work. But if you could just be your piece, it's going to fit, and the whole picture of life is going to be much better for everybody involved. Like it's good for you and everyone connected to you, for you to be yourself and for you to listen to
Yeah.
your desires.
Yeah, and I've also found that with my coaching work that it's almost even easier to be present with that. Okay, this person is different. I cannot say the same things. The same things will not work for this one. I really have to be present with this being.
Yeah.
And that is also like something then with that human design has just been like one way of just mm, leveling up the presence to be with everyone.
Totally. It's so interesting you bring that up because even if I didn't use human design as my tool to create transformation in folks, like if I was a coach using a different tool or just a standard coaching, I would still bring up their charts just so that I would know who's
Yeah.
sitting across from me and the nuanced ways of speaking with and interacting with them because every type is going to require a little bit of a different energy for you to bring or different authorities. There's 7 different authorities, 7 different ways we make decisions. Um, you want to allow them to make their decisions from the most empowered places. So it's such an interesting and very helpful tool when it comes to just knowing how to support the people in your life, whether you do coaching, directly, or you just want to support your children or your
Yeah.
partners or your family.
Hmm. So nice. And I'm like, I still want to know even more about you. Like how, um, because I'm always so fascinated that even we've been talking so much about differences that we come from different upbringings, different environments, and then how we like seek different, again, different environments and experiences. And I mean, I know you mentioned in the beginning that now you're kind of living one of your dream lives,
Mhm.
like being on the country, not countryside, but like by the ocean and so on. So where you grew up, like in the forest, and how was your family like? And then you got to New York, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in a town called West Greenwich, Rhode Island, and it's very, very rural. It's very southern Rhode Island. And we grew up like, I want to say a drive is like 10 minutes to get to a gas station. Like there, you have
Mm,
to drive through, you get off the highway, there's a gas station, and then you drive about like 10 minutes on all these back roads, and then you get to my parents' house. But when I was little, 10 minutes felt like 30 minutes. Like
yeah.
we were so far from everything. And I was so blessed in so many ways because we grew up on just acres of land, um, undeveloped woods behind us. So my parents didn't own all of the woods that was behind my house, but there was
Mm,
just acres and acres and acres of woods. And there still is actually. They have built a house kind of behind my parents' house, but there's still it's like it's
mm,
unbelievable the space between.
amazing.
Plus, there's all this other woods. But we grew up there, and my parents were not very big on like us watching TV, so we didn't have cable. And I was kind of forced. I have an older sister and a younger brother, and we were just kind of forced to just be outside all the time and really just like be like messy kids and get dirty and play in the woods. I remember we had a pool and I was growing up, I was just such a dreamer and I was such like an imaginative kid and I loved
Mm,
writing and I wanted to be a writer and I loved reading novels and I really had a very magical childhood. But as I started getting a little older, like come my high school years, all I could focus on was that I didn't have what a lot of my friends had. So I went to a private school in Providence. So going into the city every day, it was like a 45-minute
okay.
drive to get to school. And a lot of the friends that I made there were like, they lived in the city or they lived 10
Yeah.
minutes outside the city. And, they had neighbors that were super close by and they had like all these things that I just started feeling like I was in such lack.
This
Um,
exotic thing, neighbors.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we had neighbors, but they weren't like on
Yeah.
top of us, and
Yeah.
I really started focusing on this like desire to be in a more accessible world. And I wished so much. I used to wish that like my friends could say, hey, we're just like popping by and grabbing you, or we're just stopping
Mm,
over. Cause it just
mm,
felt like I was already so far down the highway, like so far south from everyone that it was like, 40, 35 minutes just to get to my exit. And then you have to drive this like long winding back road to get to my house. And so I don't know, I just really sort of othered myself from everyone else. And I used to just dream of like, when I can, I'm going to move to a city. plus on top of that, growing up, my grandparents, and actually both of my parents were born in Brooklyn, New
Okay.
York. And every year, one incredible thing that we did do was my grandparents would travel all the time, and we got to have a lot of like very culturally rich experiences. But ever since I can remember, we would go into New York City at least once or twice a year, and we would see a Broadway show, and we visit my grandpa's
Mm.
family. And I was obsessed with New York. I just fell in love with it. So I kind of like filed that under, as soon as I have a say in what I do, I'm going to move to a
Mm.
city. And when it came time to go to college, I kind of chickened out on New York. It just felt too scary. So I went to school in Boston, and I spent 2 years there after college. So I did 6 years total in Boston. And then
Okay.
I had like a big, oh shoot moment. Like, if you're going to go to New York, you better do it right now. So I sort of like abandoned my whole life in Boston, moved to New York like one night at like 3 a.m. with this girl that I had met. And it's such a wild story, the whole journey, but I'll spare you the details. But I did end up moving onto a couch in New York, and then sort of worked my way into a stable place because I didn't move there with any
Okay.
stability. I had like a duffel bag and a couple $100, and
Okay.
yeah, and I started waiting tables, and eventually I got to be a better server. So then I got to go work at better restaurants and go live in New York, and that's sort of how I funded my life for my first like 4 years in the city. I was
Mm.
working as a waitress, and just making money while I was building the dream. While I went through yoga teacher training, I was a waitress. When I went to cosmetology school full time, I also was waitressing so I could pay for my rent and my school.
Mm.
And I had a
Mm.
lot of hustle in me. I've always been pretty independent in the sense of, you know, uh, just make my own money, and so
And what brought you in that moment, like being in Boston and you had finished your college uh, studies? Yeah.
yeah, I had
But
finished my college studies. I was working. I had moved, so I was working at a salon throughout college, and I really wanted to be a hairdresser, but I knew I wanted to be a hairdresser in New York. And
okay.
and then I got this opportunity to have this like super cool, sort of like flashy job, which I was going to be an account executive at this really trendy magazine in Boston. And it was like too cool
Mhm.
for me to pass up. It was the beginning of me starting to like ignore my gut impulses. So I remember I
Mm.
went to the interview, and once I got there, it was the most depressing office I'd ever walked into in my life. It had like dark gray stained carpeting. It was like the cubicles were made of like cinder blocks, and it was just this bright fluorescent lighting, and it was just so unglamorous. It was disgusting. And I remember I met the man who'd be my manager, and I thought, oh God, like I can't do this. But when I got offered the job, instead of going with my gut, I called my mom, and my mom
Mm.
was like, yeah, do it. It's amazing. It's your first real job. Like, so good. Go do it. And so I went off that. I allowed myself to be talked into something.
Mm.
And the job just kept getting more and more and more intense and getting harder and harder. And it was like doing things like hitting the streets, like, and cold calling and knocking on people's doors and trying to get them to buy advertisement space from me.
Mm.
Um, and then, like, every 2 weeks, we would do these like industry parties where you could invite potential clients or your clients who were buying advertisement space in your magazine, and just go down and really play this part, and have to really have this certain lifestyle about you, where you were kind of like always out and about on the scene. And
Mm.
it started to feel, although it felt cool on the outside, and like to work at that magazine felt like so cool, um, it felt so internally wrong. And this is actually the first time I ever manifested an illness, but it was in the late spring of that year. So I had started working there in November. By the end of April, I was so misaligned. I was probably so dehydrated and like drinking way too much and just not taking care of
Mm.
myself. Also, because like the industry too, you just like go out in the middle of the day on a lunch break and like get drinks with the client. Like it was
Yeah.
just alcohol was everywhere. And I ended up having my appendix almost burst, and had to be taken in for immediate surgery. But the funny thing was, is I
Okay.
was with my friends. It was her birthday. I was with two of my friends, and I started not feeling good. And we ended up deciding I'm going to go just like see what's going on. So I went to the emergency room just to see what was happening. And I stayed almost the whole night. And then they ended up coming in and saying, like, okay, we realize we do need to have you get your appendix removed. Like, you have to go in right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
And it was like 7 a.m. And I was fully planning on just wearing the same outfit I had worn to the hospital and just going to work the next day. Like, I had a dress on, I had heels on. I was like, I'll just have to wear the same outfit to work 2 days in a row, because I'll never forget, it fell on a Friday. It was Friday morning, and Friday morning is when our ads were due for the magazine.
Mm.
And so I had all this creative artwork that needed to be approved. And like the magazine went to print at 12 p.m. or something on a Friday.
Mm.
And so, like, if I didn't fix the mistakes and didn't clear with my clients and finalize all the things, like potentially the wrong ad could get printed, like horrible, right? Like life or death. So they were wheeling me in to get operated on. And I had my Blackberry, which is what we used at the time. And I had my Blackberry, and I was like emailing clients and like calling my boss and forwarding him all the emails. And I'll never forget, the anesthesiologist was like, "What do you do for a living?" And I was like, "I just work in advertising." And they were like, "Just knock her out. She's done." Like, this is the most ridiculous thing we've ever seen. Like, every moment is like a ticking time bomb for your appendix to burst. And you're sitting here forwarding emails and not letting us like finish the procedure. But yeah, I had my phone in the operating room with me in the bed. So it was one of those moments of just realizing, like, it was a reset for me for sure. And over the next couple of months of recovering from surgery, my recovery, I think I maybe took 2 weeks off, maybe. But I definitely slowed down a little bit. And I think the good thing is that their quotas for me, my monthly sales goals I had to hit, I think they gave me like a little wiggle room or something. So the job wasn't quite as intense the month following. And that's when I started actually having the space to dream about what I really wanted, um,
Mm.
which was to quit that job and to move to New York City. Like, I really had that grounding moment where I realized I'm not in the right place, and that
Yeah.
this isn't how my life was supposed to go. I'm not supposed to have this job. I'm not supposed to
Mm.
be here. Like, there's someone else that I came here to be, and it's not this. I didn't really know what it was. I just knew it wasn't this. I don't know if you ever
Mm.
had one of those moments before where you're like,
Yep.
not this. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, because that is also what I find then so brave of you to like, so basically you were like, okay, so I'm just gonna go to New York now. Like,
Yeah.
you
'Cause, you
didn't
know,
really have a plan there.
yeah. I mean, the story is a novel in and of itself, because at the same time I was having those feelings, I was in this really important, very important, very significant relationship at the time of, with someone I thought was a soulmate to me.
Mm.
And we ended up breaking up, and it was not my choice. I had sort of shared
Mm.
with him, like, I want to move to New York and all these things. And I think was a little older than me. And he was like, you need to go. And then,
Okay.
and my lease was coming to a close and all these things. So he sort of set me free and encouraged me
Yeah.
to do it. And I took that as, if I what, like, there's no reason to stay anymore. Like, if
Yeah.
I had just left the job. I had, opened myself up to what was next. And I realized, like, if I'm not going to be in this relationship, there's no point, and I have to leave. And so it was a very complex entering into the city. I don't think I felt brave by the time I got there. I think I felt like I had nothing else to lose, because I was
Mm.
so heartbroken when the relationship ended, that I just felt like this little, like, cracked open egg, just like leaking all over the place, just trying to figure out, like, where where I belonged. And I always think back to that, and I'm always so grateful for like the induction into the person I became in New York. Like there's so much at the time. He had been so right, although I couldn't see it at the time, that like I had so much life to live and so many things to go out and experience. And I wouldn't
Mm.
have done that if I was just sitting in Boston, like being a partner to him. And
Yeah.
so it was bravery slash like I've got nothing else. Like there's no,
Yeah.
like I'm rock bottom. I have nothing. There's just there's no way. And
I think
sometimes
it's
rock bottom is beautiful. To make a decision from rock bottom, sometimes it's the
yeah.
only way.
I was just gonna say that sometimes that's the biggest gift, because then it's like exactly where what you've been saying. It's like you got nothing to lose, really. It's just okay. It's just another road, so I'm taking this one.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's oftentimes this is really like a divine
Mm.
intervention, but I look at it and I'm like, man, really my 30s was always about being cracked open. Like I didn't leave that job until I almost had an appendix burst on the operating table. I didn't leave Boston until I had my heart shattered, and I didn't leave my job at the hair salon until I broke my foot right after having knee surgery. Like it really took
Wow.
a lot for me to
Yeah.
wake up. Like and what I know now is that like if I don't listen long enough, like I'll manifest something to make me listen. So I
Yeah.
just listen. Now I just listen. I'm like, okay, got it.
Yeah. No, no, okay, I got it. The fifth time now.
Yeah. Yes.
Got
And this
it.
was when the time came to leave my job at L'Oreal that I had built, the past 8 years of my life building.
Yeah.
Um, I knew I could feel it in my body the same way I had felt every other important change in my life. Like I
Mm.
could feel it. And I just knew if I don't do this now, something is going to happen. And
Yeah.
so I'm just going to listen because I'm done like recreating these massive stressful situations to get me to wake up. Like I don't, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm all set. Um,
I think those nudges are like the greatest gift, when we start to hear that energy, when it doesn't have to scream, or the body doesn't have to do something drastical. Be like, oh, okay, I can hear it in a bit earlier stage.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But
And I
also that
try
we
to just
kind of
kind of,
like have our different life experiences. Like I know also Emily, who was a guest here in my podcast, my a dear friend of mine, who also like she broke her both feet in a car accident. And I mean, these are the kind of things that you can see that, oh, that this is like the worst thing that can happen. But even that whole episode, it's episode 2 if someone wants to find that, it's um how she really has seen that, but she needed that to get out of some other things and learn something different and take a different path that she would never had done any other way. And I
right.
think that can be so beautiful to start to see, and embracing our unique life experiences instead of like being in bitterness or blaming things that's happening.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I used to hear people share, transformation stories or share awakenings or share a story about how they maybe got out of a bad situation. And it would come to this like breaking point in their life, but then boom, everything would change.
Mm.
And sometimes I would find myself hearing that story and being like, oh, why can't that just happen to me? Like,
Yeah.
why can't something horrible just happen to me so I can wake up? And like, first of all, if anyone is feeling that, they're like, why can't I just have this gigantic horrible thing? Like you also have the power to just choose it. And it's going to be
Exactly.
so much easier if you're not building from ground zero. Like it's so much easier to just decide from a place of power. But the thing that happens is that when we hit those rock bottoms is like, we no longer have ego and we no longer have anything to lose.
Yes.
And so you're not so worried about what you're leaving behind because you're like, there's nothing to leave behind. It just
Oh,
is what it is.
yeah, you were just pointing that out. Yeah, so beautifully. Because that, I mean, I can find myself sometimes in like, uh, yeah, exactly these thoughts. Because the thing is that when you then hit rock bottom or hit something that is kind of forcing you in a different direction or so on, like if you don't have that, you just have to make a choice. And sometimes that just making a choice can be even more dreading.
Right. It's so true. I mean, I don't think I do know that our body is and our mind is really just programmed to keep us safe and to keep us in the familiar.
Yeah.
And so when we're reaching for more just because we're reaching for
Yeah.
better because we'd love it, the body will and mind will try anything just to keep us where we are. Like,
Yeah.
don't do that. That's unknown. Don't go there. It's not going to work. And so it's much harder to motivate yourself when you have a baseline of safety or you have something to lose. But what I have really found over time is that there is no safety in what no longer has meaning.
Mm.
It's no longer safe if it's not feeding you, if it's not bringing something to your life, especially when it's things like relationships or jobs that you are going to spend so much of your life force and so much of your time invested and involved in. If it's not feeding you back, it's not really safe. It's not, because it's not safe for your nervous system. It's not safe for your mind. Like, you're maybe operating on autopilot and it's okay, but it's kind of like walking on eggshells
Yeah.
of not to, disturb the giant. Like, don't wake the giant of this truth up inside of me, where I realize that this isn't the life I'm meant to be living. And when you live like that, avoiding the thing that you don't want to know or pretending that you're okay when you're not, that is really hard as well. And
Mm.
it's hard to start over, or to think you're starting over. And I say that because as a manifesting generator, part of my life's work is to remind people that we're never really starting from scratch. We
Mm.
still have all of the life experiences that we've built, and we still have the person that we've been in every single moment. And that experience means a lot and it adds up. And you don't have, if you switch careers, you don't have to, you're not starting as the fresh newbie. You're still starting as you with all of your wisdom and experience you bring to the table. So I want to say that. But hitting that reset button or starting something new can feel really scary and really hard and really painful, but also so is staying in the same place that isn't serving you. And
Yeah.
so we have to choose which hard we want to deal with. And I'd rather choose the hard of starting new, because at least in that hard, I know there's an opportunity for evolution. I know there's an opportunity for growth. But the place I'm in, if that's getting too small, if I'm starting to feel contracted and tight, there's probably not much room for growth. And so it's only going to get worse over time.
Wow. Yeah, just personally, I really needed to hear this today. So, yeah, thank you. That's so beautiful said.
I'm so happy. You're welcome.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. I'm like, this is so much good and so much wisdom here. Well, would you like to just say something more then? So you were in New York and you had your like that time of your life, and then also like looking at it even more from the manifesting generator perspective, that doing many different things. Do you see that also as that um like maybe not just in the human design but also like life in general, like that was a chapter that then started to finish off, or how did you get to where you are now?
Like, in the sense of like
Like,
freeing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, like both like going for now like working with human design and also like moving to outside New York.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that once I made the initial decision that I was going to start my own company, and go full time in this business, knowing myself and knowing my energy, I wanted to create a brand that was so big that I couldn't grow out of it, even if I decided that I wanted to
Mm.
shift the focus. So I intentionally didn't put the name human design in my brand. And it was sort of a way for me to stay really flexible with what I teach and how I teach it. And with human design being for sure the most predominant tool that I use in my work, I wanted something that could grow with me. And
Yeah.
so I really loved Meeting Your Magic because it comes back to that authentic self. And this
Yeah.
will be my life's work, is helping people fall in love with themselves, helping people respond to their truth. And I do believe I'll use the human design tool for a very long time and maybe forever, because it is so ever evolving, and it my work with it just never feels done. And I've been doing
Yeah.
it for 6 years and I still feel like there's more layers. But I wanted the brand to feel like we could pivot and shift, because it's really important for me, more than what I teach, to be in complete integrity with what I'm teaching. And so if there's ever a time where this is something that I feel like not excited about doing anymore, I wanted to give myself the opportunity to pivot and to change
Mm.
how I talk and how I share. So that was one really big piece of like honoring my manifesting generator self. And then really the craziest thing happened with was that once I came up with this very flexible name of Meeting Your Magic, it's almost like I was able to recommit to human design in a way that I hadn't before, because I really felt like every day it was my choice. Like I felt in such full autonomy to share human design, rather than be like pigeonholed into keeping it a
Mm.
part of my practice. Um, and now it's just evolved so much. And one of the fun things about having your own business, and I'm sure you know this, it's also one of the overwhelming things of having your own business, is that you get to and have to wear so many hats.
Yeah.
And so it's not just growing my skills with human design and the human design system, which I could grow forever. Like it's the amount of layers to this work is so
Mm.
fascinating. I was actually just on a podcast with someone a couple days ago, and we started around the same time, but she really, really, really goes into like the depths of human design, like beyond, beyond, beyond
Mm.
even what you see on a basic chart. And she was sharing something with me that I didn't even know. And I was like, well, it's just, it goes so deep. But beyond that, beyond growing my human design skills, um, there is just this skill set you need to develop to grow a business.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything, I'm getting an opportunity to sharpen my video editing skills, to sharpen understanding platforms like Kajabi that are e-learning systems. Now I'm building email marketing. I created my own chart generating software. So there was like coding and just all of these other things, and social media, and speaking and presenting has always been something I love so much. But it's really interesting to create your own platform and to market and sell your own classes, and to coach in group programs, and developing like corporate workshops and all of these things. So I just feel like I'm really living like the best manifesting generator life by getting to have all of these skills that I'm simultaneously growing and mastering at the
Yeah.
same exact time. And they're all things I did not know how to do until you have your business and you're in your business. And every day there's more.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think also, just like for me, I find it so beautiful to hear more of the story behind the Instagram, or behind the this that we put out, like that way of like moving out in to clients and so on, like um that you have all of your unique capacities and then building your business with that. It's just so nice.
Yeah, it's so great, and I feel the same way. I love knowing the person behind the brand they're building, and seeing how I think we can all take. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of human design readers, right? And like only one
Yeah.
business looks the way mine does, because it's
Yeah.
me, and we are all we are the point of difference. Like your authenticity is the thing that makes people want to work with you and
Mm.
choose you,
Mm.
or learn from you, or press follow on your page. And what I have found is that the more that I can share myself and share my heart and self express, the more magnetic the brand becomes.
Yeah.
But when I was trying to operate, even with my human design business in the first couple of years when I went online, trying to figure out the right like keywords to use, or trying to
Mm.
like write the right copy or any of those things, when it wasn't authentic to me, it didn't have the same effect on anyone. Like the community wasn't really growing when I was trying on everyone else's stuff. But when I found my flow, it blew my mind of like, oh, this is what actually not only feels good for me, but this is also what creates magnetism and helps grow my audience and my community.
Yeah, and I think that's so nice also to see the, again, like the more we embrace our differences and just be like, okay, this is me in the world, that is actually where the then also success comes from, and almost becomes like a second part of it, because in a way it's just so nice to feel to to be ourselves. What if that is
You're
the
so
whole
right.
point?
You're so right. And that's such a very projector insight of true success, because your signature is success, is to be
Mm,
yourself. True success for you will always be you being seen and recognized for you, which
mm.
is why a lot of projectors end up, out of alignment. Say they work really hard and they rise to the top of the company, but they're like not
Yeah.
being their authentic self, and they are quote unquote successful because they have the title and the raise and all these things, but like
Mm,
they don't feel success in their life. Or if you're presenting yourself a certain way online and you believe that's the reason why people are following you and liking you is because you're this person that you're not, it still doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like it's something that you're going to be able to consistently keep showing up. It's not attainable, right?
yeah.
And it feels shallow. Like the recognition isn't valuable unless you're being recognized for your true self. Kind of like how I said, nothing that has no meaning is actually safe. The recognition without the authenticity behind it, without you being like recognized for your truth, does not feel successful.
Mm. Ah, I'm so happy. There's so many new life wisdoms just falling into place.
Ah,
Is there
so good.
something, yeah, is there something else that you feel that we could cover?
Hmm. I think that from a human design perspective, we've really shared some really valuable pieces about the energy types and how they interact. Um, I think if people wanted to know where they could start looking up their chart,
Yeah.
or um, if I'm trying to just think, like if anyone is curious about how you take an inspiring conversation like this and turn it into something you can actually take action on, the beautiful thing is that it's available to you through your human design blueprint. Like,
Yeah.
you can pull up your chart, and maybe we can link it in the
Yeah,
show notes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll share that link with you, and we can link the body graph generator for everybody, and you can look up your chart and you can find out a little bit about your energy type. There's a little written description about each type. Um, I have so many free resources and free master classes and free places to start. My goal is really to make this work as accessible as possible for
Mhm.
people, so that at any level, no matter where you are, whether you're just getting started with it and not ready to invest in a one-on-one session, that there's still very empowering and helpful information out there for you, so that you can
Yeah.
start taking some of these aligned actions in your life. And the aligned action is the thing that's going to change your life. It is the thing that's going to take this from just being information and inspiration to the transformation. It's the application of the work that actually creates the results.
Yeah, I like that emphasis on the action part of it. It's good. And so then, yes, so where can people find you? We will have the links, but where can they find you?
Perfect. So my Instagram is Meeting Your Magic. So at Meeting Your Magic, my website is meetingyourmagic.com. And I'm Kiera Doyle, and my personal Instagram is Kiera with Love.
Hmm, so nice. Well, amazing, Kira. It's been a gift to talk with you and get to know both more about human design, almost like a little, like little lecture on it. And if someone has not been hearing about this before, like really getting an overview of that and also get to know you more personally and your story. It's been very nice to hear. So
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you so much. Thank you for having me. And I've loved chatting with you. You're a wonderful host. And I'm just so excited that you've decided to share your voice and share your incredible story and perspective and insights and your guests with everybody. So you are a gift to the world. So thank you.
Thank you. So grateful to have you with me on this journey of becoming more of me. Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
Okay. Thank you, Kiera. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Energy Talks podcast with me, Anna Johansson. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please share it. Please share it with a friend that you think might like this. Please write a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this. Share it in social media, and if you want to get in contact with me, that's easiest through my website, annajohansson.com. Enjoy your day, and what else is possible now? Bye.